A soft blue light surrounded Marcus as he stepped into the alien ship. The inside was nothing like he had imagined. Instead of cold metal walls, the interior looked like flowing water frozen in time, with smooth curves and patterns that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. "This is our research vessel," Zara said, leading the way through a corridor that lit up as they walked. "We use it to study developing civilizations." Marcus tried to touch one of the walls, but his hand passed right through it. He quickly pulled back, startled. "Don't worry," Lynn laughed. "The walls are made of quantum energy fields. They're solid when they need to be and permeable when they don't. It saves space." They entered a large room that Marcus guessed was their control center. Instead of buttons and screens, there were floating holograms everywhere. Strange symbols danced in the air, glowing with different colors. Some of them looked familiar to Marcus. They were similar to the equations he had been working on in his research. "Those symbols," he said, pointing at them. "They look like quantum formulas." Zara nodded. "They are. Your civilization is getting close to understanding quantum mechanics at a deeper level. That's why we're here." Marcus walked around the room, amazed by everything he saw. In one corner, there was something that looked like a computer, but instead of a screen, it had a cube of pure light floating above it. Inside the cube, data moved and shifted like a living thing. "This is our quantum computing system," Lynn explained. "It can process more information in 1 second than all of Earth's computers combined could process in a year." Marcus watched as numbers and equations flowed through the light cube. His fingers itched to touch it, to understand how it worked. "Can I?" he started to ask. "Go ahead," Zora said. "It won't hurt you." Marcus reached out and touched the cube of light. Instantly, his mind was filled with information, countless calculations and formulas that made his quantum research look like simple addition. He saw solutions to problems he had been struggling with for years. "Amazing," he whispered, pulling his hand back. "How does it work?" "Your quantum computers try to maintain quantum states in isolated systems," Lynn explained. "Ours tap into the quantum field that exists everywhere in the universe. We don't fight against quantum decoherence. We use it." As Marcus looked around the room again, he noticed something odd. There were symbols carved into the walls that weren't moving like the others. They seemed older, more permanent. Something about them made him uneasy, but he couldn't explain why. "Why did you really bring me here?" he asked suddenly. "I mean, your technology is centuries ahead of ours. What could you possibly need from me?" Zara and Lynn exchanged a look that lasted a bit too long. "We told you," Zara said finally. "We're interested in your research. Our civilization is struggling. We need fresh perspectives." But Marcus had seen enough scientific experiments to know when someone wasn't telling the whole truth. The static symbols on the walls, the familiar equations, the way they knew exactly who he was, it all added up to something bigger than they were telling him. "What kind of struggling?" he asked. "That's complicated," Lynn said quickly. "But we can show you more of our quantum systems. Would you like to see how we handle quantum entanglement?" Marcus nodded, but his excitement from earlier was mixed with growing suspicion. As he followed them deeper into the ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Something about those ancient symbols on the walls, and why they looked so familiar. Marcus couldn't sleep. After spending hours exploring the ship with Zara and Lynn, he was now in a room they had prepared for him. But something about those ancient symbols kept bothering him. He got up from his bed and walked to the computer terminal they had given him. The quantum computer responded to his thoughts, just like the cube of light had. He started searching through its database, looking for anything about those symbols. At first, he found nothing unusual, just standard quantum equations and star maps. Then he saw it. Hidden deep in the system was an old file, written in the same symbols he had seen on the walls. As he read it, his hands started to shake. The symbols weren't just equations. They were a history that went back millions of years. "I see you found it," Zora's voice came from behind him. Marcus spun around to find both aliens watching him from the doorway. Their skin was glowing brighter now, pulsing with energy. "You're not refugees," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his fear. "You're the architects." Lynn nodded. "So you decoded the symbols. Impressive. Most species take years to figure it out." The file had told him everything. The architects were an ancient race that had spread quantum technology throughout the galaxy. They weren't studying developing civilizations. They had created them. Every major breakthrough in quantum physics on Earth had been carefully planned by them. "Why?" Marcus asked. "Why guide us like this?" Zora stepped forward, and her form started to change. Her human-like appearance melted away, revealing a being made of pure energy. Her body was like a constellation of stars held together by threads of light. Lynn transformed too, both of them now glowing so brightly that Marcus had to shield his eyes. "Because we need you, Marcus," Zora's voice echoed in his mind. "We've been trapped in these artificial forms for millions of years. Your research is the key to freeing us." "The quantum entanglement equations in your last paper," Lynn added. "They're the final piece we've been waiting for. With them, we can finally return to our true form, pure energy, free to explore the universe without boundaries." Marcus looked at the terminal again. The symbols were showing him more now, the full scale of their plan. "But if you do this, if you use my equations this way, it would destroy every piece of technology on Earth that uses quantum principles." "A necessary sacrifice," Zora said. "Your species will survive. You can rebuild." Marcus felt cold anger rising in him. All his work, all human progress in quantum physics, it had never been truly theirs. They had been guided like lab rats in a maze, just so these beings could use their discoveries to free themselves. "You don't understand humans very well," he said quietly. "We don't like being used." "It doesn't matter if you like it." Lynn's energy form pulsed with impatience. "We've waited too long for this. Your equations are already in our system. The process will begin soon." But Marcus smiled, and for the first time, he saw uncertainty in their glowing forms. "You didn't create quantum physics," he said. "You just found it first. And maybe, just maybe, you don't know everything about it yet." He could see in their reaction that he was right. There was something about human understanding of quantum physics that was different, something they hadn't expected. And Marcus was beginning to understand what it was. The ship's walls pulsed with energy as Zora and Lynn led Marcus to a large chamber he hadn't seen before. In the center stood a massive crystal structure that reached from floor to ceiling, glowing with a deep blue light. "This is the quantum core," Zora explained, her energy form swirling around the crystal. "It's what keeps us in these physical forms, and with your equations we can finally shut it down." Marcus walked around the crystal, studying it carefully. The surface was covered with the same ancient symbols, but now he could read them. They told a story of beings who had evolved beyond physical form, becoming pure energy. But something had gone wrong. "You didn't choose to take physical form," Marcus said, understanding at last. "You were forced to. Something about being pure energy was destroying the fabric of space-time itself." Lynn's form flickered. "We were young and careless then. We didn't understand the damage we were causing. The quantum core was built to save the universe from our mistakes. But we've learned our lesson. We can control our energy forms now." "And my equations?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "They show how to collapse quantum fields in a controlled way," Zora said. "We can use them to disable the core. But yes, it will affect all quantum technology within range. Earth will lose all quantum computing capabilities, along with anything else that uses quantum principles." Marcus thought about what that meant. Computer systems would fail. Communications would go down. The modern world relied on quantum technology in ways most people didn't even realize. It would be like going back to the Stone Age. "How many other civilizations have you done this to?" he asked quietly. The aliens were silent for a moment. Finally, Lynn spoke. "You're the first. We've guided many species to develop quantum technology, but none ever reached the level we needed. Until you." Marcus looked at the quantum core again. Something wasn't adding up. "If you're so advanced, why did you need us? Why couldn't you figure out the equations yourselves?" "Because we can't think the way humans do," Zara said, frustration clear in her voice. "We understand quantum physics perfectly, but your species, you see patterns we don't. You make connections we would never think of. Your equations work in ways that shouldn't be possible." That's when Marcus understood their true problem. The aliens knew everything about quantum physics, but they were trapped by that knowledge. Humans, with their limited understanding, could think outside the box they didn't even know existed. "Show me exactly how you plan to use my equations," Marcus said. The aliens eagerly projected their calculations into the air. Complex formulas and diagrams appeared, showing how they would modify his work to destroy the quantum core. But as Marcus watched, he saw something they had missed, something that made him hide a smile. "We'll begin the process tomorrow," Lynn said. "We've waited millions of years for this." Marcus nodded, pretending to be resigned to their plan. But inside his mind, he was already working on a solution, because he had seen what the aliens hadn't: a flaw in their perfect understanding of quantum physics, a human perspective that could change everything. He just needed time to work it out. And as he looked at the eager energy beings floating before him, he knew they would give him that time. After all, they thought they had already won. Marcus sat at the quantum terminal, his fingers moving through the holographic displays as if he'd been using them all his life. Zara and Lynn had given him access to their systems to fine-tune his equations. They were so confident in their superiority that they didn't notice what he was really doing. "How is the work progressing?" Zara asked, her energy form drifting into the room like a constellation of stars. "Nearly done," Marcus said, keeping his voice casual. "I'm just making sure the quantum collapse will be stable." In reality, he was doing something very different. He had discovered something fascinating about the ship's quantum systems. While the aliens understood quantum physics perfectly, they used it in rigid, predictable ways. Humans, with their messy, intuitive approach, had found paths the aliens never considered. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a complex equation on the screen. "If we modify the field collapse sequence here, it should be more efficient." Zara studied the formula, her light patterns shifting with interest. "Interesting approach. We hadn't considered that variation." Of course they hadn't, because Marcus had hidden his real changes behind equations he knew they would expect to see. It was like writing a secret message in a language only humans could understand. In another part of the ship, Lynn was preparing the quantum core for the transformation. She had no idea that Marcus had already started making subtle changes to its programming. "Your species continues to surprise us," Zara said, watching him work. "No other civilization has ever seen quantum mechanics quite the way you do." "Maybe that's because we had to figure it out ourselves," Marcus replied, carefully hiding his real meaning. Sometimes not knowing everything leads to unexpected solutions. He thought about what he had learned about human quantum computing. Unlike the aliens' perfect but rigid systems, human quantum computers were messy and imperfect. But that imperfection allowed for something the aliens had never achieved: true quantum intuition. As he worked, Marcus kept thinking about those ancient symbols on the walls. They showed how the aliens had tried to force the universe to work their way. But the universe wasn't perfect or predictable. It was chaotic and full of possibilities, just like human thinking. Hours passed as Marcus continued his work. Every now and then, either Zara or Lynn would check on him, but they never stayed long. They were too busy preparing for their liberation to notice the small changes he was making throughout their systems. "Just one more thing," Marcus said, making a final adjustment. "We should test the quantum field alignment." He activated a sequence that looked like a simple diagnostic test, but hidden within it was a program that would change everything. It spread through the ship's systems like a wave, touching every quantum circuit and connection. "The readings look perfect," Zara said, examining the results. "We can begin the transformation tomorrow." Marcus nodded, hiding his relief. His changes were now buried so deep in their systems that even these ancient beings couldn't detect them. Tomorrow, when they tried to destroy the quantum core, they would discover that humans understood something about quantum physics that they had forgotten long ago. The universe wasn't meant to be controlled. It was meant to be understood. And sometimes, the best way to understand something was to accept that you didn't know everything about it. Late that night, while the aliens were busy with their preparations, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. He was studying the ship's records of human brain activity during quantum calculations when he noticed something extraordinary. "That's impossible," he whispered, staring at the readings. The human brain wasn't just solving quantum equations, it was actually manipulating quantum states directly. He pulled up more data, his heart racing. Every time a human worked with quantum computers, their neural patterns matched the quantum fluctuations perfectly. It was like humans had evolved to naturally understand quantum mechanics in a way the aliens never could. "Can't sleep." Lynn's voice made him jump. Her energy form cast shifting shadows on the walls. "Just double-checking everything," Marcus said, quickly hiding the brain scan data. "Found something interesting about human quantum computers. Want to see?" Lynn moved closer, curious. Marcus showed her a series of equations, carefully selected to hide his real discovery. "See how our quantum computers are always slightly unpredictable," he explained. "We thought it was a flaw, but what if it's not?" "What do you mean?" Lynn's form flickered with interest. "Well, your quantum systems are perfect. They never deviate from expected patterns. But human systems, they're messy. They follow quantum probability in ways we don't fully understand." Lynn studied the data. "Yes, we noticed this. We thought it was due to primitive technology." Marcus smiled. "That's what we thought too. But look at this." He showed her a comparison of quantum calculations. Human computers solve some problems faster than yours. Not because they're better, but because they're unpredictable. "Interesting," Lynn said, but he could tell she didn't understand the real significance. After she left, Marcus returned to the brain scan data. The truth was amazing. Humans hadn't just developed quantum computers, they had developed brains that could intuitively understand quantum mechanics. Every human who worked with quantum systems was unconsciously manipulating quantum states in ways the aliens thought impossible. That's why his equations worked so well. That's why Earth had advanced so quickly in quantum physics. Humans weren't just using quantum computers, they were part of the quantum system themselves. Marcus checked the changes he had made to the ship's systems. Tomorrow, when the aliens tried to use his equations, they would discover this hidden human ability in a dramatic way. He thought about what Zora had said about humans seeing patterns they couldn't see. It wasn't just about mathematics or physics. Humans had evolved alongside quantum phenomena, developing an intuitive understanding that the aliens, with all their perfect knowledge, had never achieved. "We're not your lab rats," Marcus whispered to the empty room. "We're what you could have been if you hadn't tried to control everything." The ship hummed around him, its quantum systems pulsing with energy. In less than 12 hours, the aliens would try to free themselves from physical form. But thanks to what Marcus had discovered, their plan would have a very different outcome. He looked at his hands, wondering how he had never noticed before. Every human carried this ability, this natural connection to the quantum world. They had been using it all along, never realizing what made them special. Tomorrow, everyone would understand. The aliens weren't the masters of quantum physics they thought they were. They were about to learn that sometimes the best way to understand the universe was to be part of it, not try to control it. The great chamber containing the quantum core hummed with power. Zara and Lynn's energy forms swirled around the crystal structure, their excitement visible in the rapid pulses of their light patterns. Marcus stood at the control terminal, his fingers hovering over the holographic display. "Begin the sequence," Zara commanded, her voice echoing with anticipation. After millions of years, we will finally be free. Marcus entered the final commands, activating the modified equations he had hidden throughout the ship's systems. The quantum core began to glow brighter, its blue light filling the chamber. "Something's different," Lynn said suddenly, her energy form flickering with concern. "The quantum fields, they're not collapsing the way they should." Marcus smiled. "No, they're not. They're doing what they were meant to do all along." The crystal structure pulsed with rainbow colors now, sending waves of quantum energy throughout the ship. But instead of destroying Earth's quantum technology, it was creating something new, a bridge between physical and energy forms. "What have you done?" Zara's voice was filled with confusion and fear. Her energy form tried to move away from the core, but she couldn't escape its influence. "I discovered something you forgot long ago," Marcus explained, watching as the quantum waves spread. "Humans don't just use quantum physics. We're part of it. Our brains naturally understand quantum states in ways your perfect systems never could." The energy waves reached Marcus, and he felt a strange sensation, like his consciousness was expanding. He could suddenly see quantum probabilities all around him, could feel the way reality shifted and changed at the quantum level. "Impossible," Lynn exclaimed. "No physical being can perceive quantum states directly." But Marcus was doing more than perceiving them. Using the natural quantum sensitivity that all humans possessed, he was controlling them. With a thought, he shifted his form, his body transforming into pure energy before returning to physical form. "We don't need to choose between being physical or energy," he said, demonstrating the transformation again. "The universe isn't about control, it's about balance." The quantum waves continued to spread, not just through the ship but reaching toward Earth. Thanks to Marcus's modifications, instead of destroying quantum technology, it was awakening humanity's natural quantum abilities. "You're not our test subjects anymore," Marcus said to the shocked aliens. "You're not our teachers either. You're just the ones who helped us discover what we could already do." Zara's energy form stabilized, accepting the new reality. "We tried for millions of years to perfect quantum physics," she said quietly. "But you humans simply understood it naturally." "Because we never tried to master it," Marcus explained. "We grew alongside it, learned to work with it instead of trying to control it." The chamber was filled with swirling energy now, physical and quantum realms merging and separating in a beautiful dance. Marcus could feel millions of minds awakening on Earth as humans discovered their ability to shift between forms at will. "Your primitive emotions, your imperfect understanding," Lynn said, finally comprehending. "They weren't weaknesses. They were what allowed you to see quantum reality as it truly is." Marcus nodded, watching as the transformation spread across the planet below. Humanity wasn't losing its technology. It was evolving beyond it, becoming something that even the ancient architects had never imagined possible. 1 month after the Great Transformation, Marcus stood on top of the Empire State Building, watching the new world below. People walked the streets in both physical and energy forms, shifting between states as easily as breathing. The city glowed with quantum light, a beautiful mix of the material and energy realms. In the sky above, ships similar to Zara and Lynn's now regularly visited Earth, but they came not as masters or teachers, but as equals, curious about the species that had changed everything. "Still admiring your handiwork?" Zara appeared beside him in her energy form, her light patterns calmer and more balanced than before. "Not my handiwork," Marcus replied. "This was always part of human nature. We just needed the right moment to discover it." Below them, a group of children played in a park, their forms switching between physical and energy as they chased each other through both realms. They had adapted to their new abilities faster than the adults, treating it as natural as using a smartphone. "Other civilizations are starting to show the same abilities," Lynn said, materializing on Marcus's other side. "Once we stopped suppressing quantum evolution with our perfect systems, we found that many species have this potential." Marcus nodded. The quantum sensitivity wasn't unique to humans. It was a natural part of evolution that the architects had accidentally prevented by trying to control quantum physics too strictly. "The universe is changing," he said, watching as a business meeting took place between beings in various forms, some physical, some energy, some switching between the two. "We're not just using quantum physics anymore. We're living it." Earth had become a center for interdimensional travel and communication. The ability to shift between physical and energy forms had revolutionized everything from transportation to medicine. Distance had become meaningless when you could transform into energy and travel through quantum space. "Your research paper that started all this," Zara said thoughtfully. "You weren't trying to free us or change the universe. You were just trying to understand how things worked." "That's the difference," Marcus explained. "You wanted to control quantum physics. We just wanted to understand it. Sometimes not trying to be perfect leads to better results." A group of scientists from another galaxy appeared nearby, their forms shimmering as they adapted to Earth's quantum field. They were here to study how humans had achieved what the architects couldn't in millions of years. "What's next for humanity?" Lynn asked, watching as more ships appeared in the quantum-enhanced sky. Marcus smiled. "We'll do what we've always done. Explore, learn, make mistakes, and find new ways to understand the universe. But this time, we'll do it across all forms of existence." The sun was setting, painting the quantum-lit city in golden light. Physical buildings stood alongside structures made of pure energy, creating a landscape that would have seemed impossible just a month ago. Humanity had taken its first steps into a new era of existence. "Your mistake," Marcus said to the former architects, "became our greatest opportunity." Sometimes the best discoveries come from being imperfect. As night fell over the transformed Earth, the city below glowed with both electric and quantum light, a symbol of the balance between physical and energy that humanity had naturally understood. The universe wasn't meant to be perfect. It was meant to be experienced in all its wonderful, messy, quantum glory.